what advice would you give an aspiring investor who's 6 to 12 months behind you?
I would say walk, don't run,
Mhm.
because it takes time to get to your first deal. And so just take your time and know what value that you bring to the table.
Mhm.
Talk to everyone and figure out how you can help them and add value to them and go from there.
I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast, and this is a first deal episode where we walk through what it takes to find, fund, and close a first apartment complex. Now, if you're an aspiring apartment investor yourself, you're probably trying to do the exact same thing. So before we get to this episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little bell below to make sure you get notified every time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. Very excited for today's show. We've got a first deal series episode, but not just any first deal series episode. We've got one of our aspiring investors who came on a show previously. We've got Bernadeau Charles with us today talking about his first deal. So Bernadeau, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. It's good to be here. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you back. And it's been a fairly short time between when you came on as the aspiring investor last time and now. So, congratulations on getting a piece of a deal, and understand we're going to be talking about a 66 unit apartment complex in Columbia, South Carolina today.
That is correct. Yeah, it feels great. It's a lot of work, a lot of late nights, early mornings, but I'm happy to be here for sure.
Yeah, and that's the nature of this game. I mean, most people, do similar to what you do or what I did, and you've got a W-2 and you're working something else. And this is, for some people, it's their exit plan from their W-2. For others, it's just a way to, make a little bit more money on the side. But either way, it's a lot of late nights for most people. But that said, let's talk about, before we jump into you and how you got this apartment complex under your belt. Let's talk about the last time you were on the show. We brought you on with Camilla Jeffs. Any big takeaways from what you learned on the show as an aspiring investor?
Yeah, so what I learned from her that was really big for me was when it comes to raising capital, not trying to sell the deal,
Mhm.
but just talk about an opportunity to your investors, right? And
Yeah.
if they want to invest, that's great. If not, there'll be more deals down the line, but don't feel like you have to sell the deal. And so that really allowed me to be in a space talking to family and friends, to not trying to sell them per se, but say, hey, I have this opportunity that I'm working on. Here are the numbers. Here what it's about. If you're interested, let's talk some more. If not, it's no worries, right? So.
Yeah, it's I do the same thing when I'm talking about deals. Is I'll typically, I think the language you use is important. Give them an opportunity to invest. Instead of like you just mentioned, trying to sell them, give them an opportunity to invest. And if you want to one up that, if you're investing as well, give them an opportunity to invest with you is probably the next step up. But definitely appreciate that. And for the listeners, go back and check that episode out. If you're listening to this episode within a couple of days of when it aired, the episode with Camilla and Bernadeau will be up right behind it. So check it out and see how far he's come since then. But that said, Bernadeau, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell us, where you came from, what you've been doing, and what got you into multifamily investing.
Yeah, so growing up, I was told to go to school, get a good job, and you'll be set. And so I went that route. I went to college. I got my degree in engineering. I graduated. I got me a big boy job. I was excited. I thought I had made it.
Yep.
But then I realized what I had envisioned when I was in school was not really what I was living day to day. And so in 2017, I just made the jump and I dove into everything real estate. So books, podcasts, meetups, conferences, and I just learned as much as I possibly could learn, right? And so after about a year and a half or so, I bought my first property. It was a small rental property, and it was cash flowing. It wasn't a lot. It was small, but I didn't have to be there 9 hours a day to make that profit. So I'm like, oh, this is a high. I need to do more of this stuff.
Oh
And so
yeah.
I bought more. I bought small multifamily, duplexes. And I realized I wanted to go bigger. I wanted to buy apartments. And so I shifted from buying single family homes and small multifamily to now going into syndication routes and joint ventures.
Yeah, I mean, you remind me of a quote that I like to remind myself of. It's Warren Buffett. He says, if, and I'm probably going to butcher the actual quote, but he says, if you can't learn to make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die. So, and I think that's exactly what you caught wind of. It's like, man, I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm not working for that money. And
Right.
that's a game changer for a lot of people. So good on you for that one. But so, and the other thing that you mentioned, a lot of people, it's conventional wisdom, and I have a really hard time stomaching conventional wisdom at this point in my life. To go to school, get a good job. It works for a lot of people. There's nothing wrong with people who follow that. That's the path that I followed, and I probably wouldn't be here if I didn't. But I think there's more to it than just go to school and get a good job and follow that pathway that other people put for you. But
Right.
so let's talk about getting into your first deal. Once again, 66 units in Colombia, quite substantial. So let's rewind the clock. Let's talk about the education part. How did you educate yourself about real estate before your first couple of properties, and then specifically about multifamily?
Yeah. So again, I became obsessed. So when I'm obsessive, I go through every kind of channel that I can possibly go to. So YouTube, videos on YouTube, talking to people at meetups, conferences, reading books. And so I was just constantly putting in the time and effort to learn how to underwrite, how to find deals, how to talk to brokers. And so it was all self-taught via the internet. And over time, I felt more comfortable to be able to now, dive in there and start doing these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something that is really nice about today's age is the information's out there. It just takes a little bit of time, and it takes a little bit of hustle to be able to take the information and apply it, really. So so essentially you self-educated getting to where you're at right now.
That's correct. Yeah. And I'm not sure how, again, I'm not sure how it was done before the internet. I mean, because everything's out there. If you can put in the time to find it, it's really all there. So it's just about putting in the effort to figure out exactly what do not understand in the gap and fill that gap over time. So
I remember buying books, before the internet. I remember buying books, and my road into single family. This is long before Bigger Pockets was even an idea. But I remember going to Barnes and Noble and buying a book about single family rentals. And I'm not sure how things were done before these big box bookstores were out, but
right.
evidently it was. And I think the mediums just changed a lot. And actually, interesting you mentioned that somebody came on the podcast recently and talked about late night infomercial where they bought into a cassette tape program. So
old school.
Old school, yeah. But
Right.
the nice thing is, YouTube, is for the most part free. But so you got a fairly free education. Now, college degree versus YouTube. I mean, did you think you got a better or worse education going the YouTube route? How about that?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I
question
got.
too.
I know, right? I would say I got a better education on YouTube because I was able to apply what I learned. Because honestly, I went through school 4 or 5 years of education, and to be honest, I haven't applied. I would say maybe 5% of what I learned in school, right? At my current job, whereas now I'm applying everything I learned, via books, podcasts. I'm actively applying these things right now, in my real estate, career. So I would say it's been more practical education, it's more hands-on, YouTube than just a degree at school.
Oh yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I say a lot. I do have 2 degrees in math, a bachelor's and a master's, and I haven't broken out differential equations outside of the classroom for anything,
Right.
So yeah, I think the applicability sometimes of college education, it's not directly applicable, but the YouTubes or I'll throw podcasts in there as well. The education you get that's internet based right now, you can directly apply it and get a lot of different people with different viewpoints.
Right. If you think about the math, I mean, I took Calc 1, 2, 3, I took DiffQ,
Yeah.
Physics 1, 2. I mean, all those math classes and multi-family investing, I haven't done any kind of,
Oh.
DiffQ or calculus. So
yeah, I mean, the closest I get to it is when we're looking at like the defeasance, what's our prepayment penalty going to be? But quite frankly, I pick up the phone and I call the lender and he gives me the number, so,
right.
I don't, and it's not even that complex of math, but the applicability and something that I found is I got to the point personally where I had read so many books and listened to so many podcasts that I wasn't going to learn anything else from books or podcasts. And from there on out, the only way I was going to learn was by actually applying it and taking action. And that's I think where the real education came in. And, maybe, go out on a limb, maybe one of the downsides to, the public education or current education system is it's not immediately applied in a lot of cases. So, all right. Well, that said, let's talk about team, because, this is obviously a team sport. So how did you meet the people that you came into this apartment deal with?
Yeah, so I went to a conference last year, multifamily masters conference in Orlando, Florida. And so when I went there, I met an individual on the last day of the conference. It was just pure chance. We met, started talking, and we had the same goal, vision, and drive. And so we kept in contact, started talking every day on a regular basis, looking at deals, every night via Zoom. And so via him, met other people. And so it just organically grew into a team of different skill sets. And so we began just looking at deals in certain market until this one came around and it made sense. So yeah.
Now, when you met him, what was it about, him or the relationship because I'm sure you met dozens of people at that conference. What was the difference when you met him, or what was the distinguishing factor that led you to say, I'm going to follow up with this guy?
Well, usually I follow up with everyone. So I talk to everyone, but honestly, it was the way we talked. It was just the connection was just different. Right. And so, and he had the same kind of drive that I had and the same kind of vision of where we wanted to be. Also the same kind of markets that I was looking at. And so it just made more sense. And over time, we just kind of formed that bond over the phone, and it just grew from there. So it was just organically, just conversations, the same kind of mindset, the same kind of goals, and yeah.
Love it. So you guys were aligned on a couple of things, and now, were you guys both interested in South Carolina as far as investments, or did that come later?
So that came later because our initial market was in Georgia, right? So we're looking at a few deals in Georgia, and over time, that went to South Carolina where we find this deal. And so it wasn't the initial intent, but it came to us and we just went that route.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Atlanta to Columbia, I've driven that several times before, but Atlanta to Columbia is 2.5, maybe 3 hours. So, but yeah, so it's not too big of a stretch, but I think a lot of people who listen to the show know that I've got properties in Columbia. I got a lot of properties in South Carolina and a couple in Georgia. So those are my stomping grounds too. And it's, there's a lot of fertile grounds there for investment. There's a lot of positive growth that's happened there and that's expected in the future. So a lot of goodness there. So let's talk about finding this particular deal. How did you guys find it? And then tell us about your role in putting this thing together.
Yeah, so this deal was sent to us actually via an agent, right? Not a broker, which was kind of weird. And also it was on the MLS. And so
66 on the MLS.
Yeah, it was weird. It was on LoopNet, it was on Zillow. So I'm like, this is weird, right? And so, and as you guys know, saying is, LoopNet is where deals go to die. So I would have never looked at LoopNet. But if you can find a problem and a solution to it, right, it's possible to find deals on LoopNet and so forth. But yeah, it was on MLS. My point in this and my role was underwriting, and so we found the deal. I underwrote it, and right away I knew there was something there because the rents were averaging $775, and the market was about $950, plus. And so I knew there was something there. And so we just jumped on it and began going through the steps, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. And wow. I mean, I'm familiar with that area. We were talking about before we hit the record button that one of the first deals I ever looked at was not very far from where you guys closed on this one. But wow, anything starting with a 6 in rents in that area is pretty undervalued. So I think you guys got a nice little upside play on that one. But so your role was underwriting. You went through it, you looked at it, and I imagine you picked the phone back up. You're like, dude, we got a pretty good little deal on our hands here.
oh yeah, because I have, prior to that, I've been underwriting a lot of deals. And so it was definitely, right away when the deal is, it's not making sense, or it's kind of like not really there. But this one, just right away, I'm like, hey guys, we need to, this is definitely something is there, right? Because of the area, the market makes sense. The
Yep.
rents are definitely below what it is in the market. And so I knew right away that it was definitely something there for us to pursue and go after.
Awesome. So let's talk about exactly that. So you pursued it. Just tell us what happened from there. I assume an LOI was submitted. Did you guys get the price you wanted, or was there some negotiation in there?
Yeah, so the price was about 4.5 for it, and so we submitted the LOI. It was accepted, and at that point, it was more so just putting down our money for the EMD and doing our inspections and so forth, right? So it was really, I mean, the price was just so shocking that it made sense at that price. So
Yeah.
there was no reason to kind of go lower than that, right? So,
Yeah, man. I mean, if these guys would have gone with a commercial broker,
yeah, yeah.
they would have got a lot more. I'll tell you what. Any indication why they didn't go with a commercial broker?
I think, I don't know, but I think the agent, I don't know if they didn't have the experience to go with a broker, but the agent clearly did not know what the value of the property was or how to go about it. And so that's why I was on all these sites like Zillow and so forth, right? So it made no sense to us. I was curious as to why am I seeing this on, on regular Zillow sites, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's just not experienced agent, broker, and the owner.
Well, I mean, I did some quick math, and assuming it was in decent condition, you guys got it at high 60s a door. And I know a lot of C class. Once again, Columbia is an area that I know well. I know downtown Columbia, C class is 125ish a door right now, but get out in the outskirts and you're talking 75 to 80 a door for C class. So you guys got a good price going in. What was the business plan on this particular deal?
Yeah, so this property had a lot of deferred maintenance on it, and the owner was very absent, and the property manager that he entrusted with his property just did a really bad job as far as property management goes. So really a lot of deferred maintenance, and so our plan was to go in there and manage it better, do a little fix up, get everything back up to where it should be, right? Fix things in the units, and either refi or sell it in a couple of years. So.
Nice. I think that's a pretty good business plan. It's what a lot of people do. You just it's the classic value add play. You manage it well, you fix it up, you cure the deferred maintenance, and hand it off to a seller that will hopefully manage it well from there. So,
Right.
Or to a buyer, excuse me. Cool. So let's talk about after getting it under contract, how things went from there. Any big things you guys found in the due diligence process?
Well, so I have to mention, so this was a condo portfolio, right? So we had an HOA part to all this, and so really what we found was that there was a lot of different maintenance, not only inside the units but also on the outside, that the HOA was not doing a good job of. And so being that we're buying a majority of the units, we would have control of the HOA to kind of drive them to do certain things to the property. And so
Yeah, that's nice.
that aspect of it was also nice, having that control. Yeah.
Okay. So now you've got a majority seat on the HOA. How was it difficult to get a loan on this condo portfolio?
Definitely. That was probably one of the hardest parts of this deal, I would say, was to find a loan that made sense, because of the HOA,
Mhm.
the lenders wanted a much lower LTV.
Yep.
So it was I remember just calling every day, talking to lenders, and it's like, man, I'm just hitting a wall.
Yeah.
We did get terms, but the terms were, 5-year interest only, fixed. It was a bridge loan, which was
Mhm.
fine, but it had a yield maintenance on it,
Mhm.
right? So if you were to sell it before the year 5 at any point in time, you would owe the interest for the whole
Right.
term of the loan. Obviously, that's not good, but that was our best option.
Mhm.
But luckily, we're at towards the end of doing this deal, we're able to get the seller to carry the loan himself
Oh,
to
really?
similar terms. Yeah, and so we, at that point, got essentially the same, if not better terms, with no penalty on the
Yeah.
loan. And so that was a big help, because yeah, lending for this kind of deal is not easy.
Mhm.
And so our plan at that point was to, if we could not get lending, was just hold it for 5 years and sell it at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense. And lenders, I mean, when you're going into a condo, they want you to own everything. There's a little bit of risk to the lender if you only own some of the things, and it's a little better from the lending perspective if you've got a majority of the units, because you have the control of the homeowners association. But since you don't have complete control over the property, lenders tend to be a little skittish on properties like that, and some of them won't even touch it. But the ones that do, like you mentioned, aren't going to give you the same terms that they would on a 66 unit apartment complex.
Right.
So
Yep.
interesting. So you were able to get the owner to do a seller carry, and so now you're giving him the interest instead of a lender. Pros and cons of doing seller financing, but I think in this particular case, probably the best option for you. So good on you guys for that one. Um, so let's talk about the capital raise. How much money did you guys have to raise, and how did that part of the deal go?
Yeah, so the raise was about 2.1, 2.2 raise. And so we had so initially we had a couple of raiser on board on our
Mhm.
team. That was They were gonna raise majority of the equity that we needed.
Mhm.
About a month prior to closing, they bailed on us. And
Mm.
so we had to essentially scramble to find another raiser to bring on board to raise what we needed. And so um, definitely a lesson learned there is that don't rely on just one raiser on your team, right? Because you never know, you might need a
Yeah.
few raisers on your team to raise that much equity. So that was our first property. We didn't know. And so but the raise went well. We were able to raise it in the last minute.
Mhm.
Um, but it was definitely not easy as it seems, because as we hear, you find a deal, the money will come. Well, that's not really how it goes, as I've
Yeah.
learned. I mean, it sounds nice to say that, but in reality, it's a lot of work, and it takes experience from other raisers and knowing how to approach a deal like this to be able to get the equity to
Yeah.
close.
Yeah, and that was our experience as well. I thought the same thing on our first capital raise. Hey, we got a good deal. Where's the money? And turns out it's not quite as easy as have a good deal. It's going to be fully funded, right? But there's still a lot of effort, a lot of labor that goes into that one. But yeah, you guys were able to raise the capital. You were able to get it across the finish line, and just based off what you're saying, I assume you guys had to raise a fair amount of your renovation budget as well, right?
That is correct. Yeah, the capex was about 650, right? So it made the raise much higher than what we needed to close, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So about $10,000 a unit. That's a healthy number for going in for capex. Allows you some upgrades, and I know there's a lot of deferred maintenance you guys got to take care of. So yeah, interesting. So cool. So any other big hitches between contract to close? Anything that was a really big aha moment for you?
A big aha moment for me. I would say the big thing for us was that no one panicked on our team. So
Mhm.
because a lot of things went wrong as far as us doing it, for our first time. And so at every roadblock that happened where, lost the capital raiser, we lost the lender, this didn't
Mhm.
go right, everyone stayed level-headed. No one lost it, or no one really just panicked. And so by us being calm, cool, and collected,
Mhm.
every time an issue occurred, our main thing was, hey, there's a problem, there's a solution, let's go out there and find a solution. So we all were able to get over the humps by staying calm, cool, and collected, and going to find the next solution to
Yeah.
get into closing. So.
I love that. I love that. And, it's interesting, when things get stressful, you can kind of tell. It's nice to have those stressful moments before you close on a property, so you know how people are going to react to bad news and to stressors like that. And, happy that everything seemed to work out, and, people were able to maintain their calm and push through. So now let's see, you said you closed in April, and it's currently June. It'll be probably July when this podcast airs. So tell us how things have gone since you guys closed in April. So the first 2 or so months of operations.
Yeah, so far everything's going pretty well. We now have our PM fully on board, and so we do have a few units vacant that we're
Yep.
looking to turn here pretty soon, and so that's right now in the process of being done. And so yeah, it's going pretty well. We have a few I guess marketing out there for tenants, and
Mhm.
got a few applications going in, and so we're looking to, I think we're projecting 950 for our
Mhm.
rents. We might be able to get 1,000 plus, and
Yeah.
so it's going good so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, we've got a C-class asset not too far from you guys, but you're definitely in a little nicer area than we're at. We've got a HUD development, Section 8, 100% Section 8. So, you're definitely in a better area, and I think $1,000 rents in that area are achievable. So, well, that's awesome. So let's see. Let's wrap things up really quick. And I got a couple of last, I'm going to call them last minute questions, but a couple of questions that get us through the home stretch here. So first question, what's next for you?
Yeah, so right now I'm actively sourcing deals, talking to brokers or the investors, and looking for what's going to be the next opportunity for us. And so it's again, I love to underwrite, so I'm underwriting constantly in the
Mhm.
morning before work or after work, late evenings, lunch breaks, you name it. So it's more so just looking at deals and seeing where the next
Yep.
opportunity might be.
Getting the next one. Awesome. So what advice would you give an aspiring investor who's 6 to 12 months behind you?
I would say walk, don't run,
Mhm.
because it takes time to get to your first deal. And so just take your time and know what value that you bring to the table.
Mhm.
Talk to everyone and figure out how you can help them and add value to them, and go from there. So it's better to take your time than trip and fall, right? So just take your time, you'll get there, and just put in the work and the effort.
I like it. Walk, don't run. Yeah, I think that's a lesson that I think a lot of people need to hear. So walk, don't run. And last question, how can listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, so I'm active on Instagram. So if you are on social media, you can find me there at Bernadeau_buys_multifamily. So
Mhm.
shoot me a DM and let's talk. Also, if you are in the Orlando area, let me know. I do have a few things that I do here as far as meetups. If you want to join us and connect. So
Awesome. Sounds great. So we'll put a link to your Instagram profile in the show notes. And anyway, great talking to you again. And once again, congratulations on closing on this 66 units. Big deal.
thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure to subscribe. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community yet, which we call a Tribe of Titans, you are missing out. Get 30 days free by clicking the link in the description to this episode, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.